All right, today we're diving into a really powerful, really intense passage from the book of Isaiah. It's just 4 verses, but honestly, it reads like a divine courtroom drama, like a prosecutor laying out an airtight case against the people of Judah. So let's break down the charges. So, right out of the gate, Isaiah just drops this bombshell. It's not a warning of what might happen in the future, it's a statement of fact. God has forsaken his people. Imagine hearing that. It's a shocking, devastating reality, and it immediately makes you ask one thing. Why? Right? That's the big question that hangs over everything. Why on earth would God abandon the very people he chose? Well, Isaiah doesn't leave us hanging. He's about to lay out all the evidence, piece by piece, to show exactly why this judgment has come down. Okay, so the first charge on the docket is what you could call a total spiritual corrosion. This isn't some random act. God's abandonment is a direct result of the people turning their backs on him, and instead embracing all the practices of the nations surrounding them. And verse 6 gets super specific. It breaks this charge down into 3 key influences. First, they were replenished from the east, basically filling their culture with ideas and idols from places like Chaldea. Second, they got into soothsayers, just like their old enemies, the Philistines. And third, they pleased themselves in the children of strangers, which, as we'll see, was all about dangerous alliances. So what even are soothsayers? Well, these weren't just your average fortune tellers. They were people who claimed they could predict the future by watching clouds or stars, a practice famously associated with the Philistines. For Judah to adopt this was a huge deal. It was a complete rejection of faith, like saying, you know what, God, we're not going to ask you for guidance, we're going to go with these other guys instead. And that phrase about the children of strangers, that wasn't just about being friendly with foreigners. No, this was about making official political and military deals with other countries. This was a massive no-no because it showed they'd stopped trusting in God to protect them. Instead, they were relying on human power and political handshakes. Now, the next piece of evidence builds right on top of that. Isaiah shows how the nation's wealth and military power, things they were probably really proud of, were actually exhibit B in the case against them, proving just how disobedient they'd become. I mean, listen to this description. Isaiah paints this picture of a nation that is just overflowing with cash and weapons. And this was true. During the reign of King Uzziah, Judah was incredibly prosperous and powerful. But the very thing they saw as a sign of success was, ironically, a symbol of their rebellion. And here, this is the smoking gun. This is where the case becomes absolutely undeniable. You see Isaiah's description of Judah right next to the specific law God gave them in Deuteronomy. The law for their kings literally said, don't stockpile horses and don't hoard gold and silver. And what were they doing? Exactly that. It's not a misunderstanding. It's a blatant, in-your-face violation of the law. And you can imagine what this did to their society, right? It just kicked off this awful downward spiral. All that wealth created a huge gap between the rich and the poor. It fueled all this pride and internal conflict. And the endless horses and chariots? That was a full-blown military arms race, a clear sign that they had put all their faith in their army, not in God. So, after the foreign corruption and the materialism, Isaiah brings out the final and most damning piece of evidence. This is what it all led to: the ultimate spiritual crime. The entire land was soaked in idolatry. The charge is just so simple and so devastating. The land wasn't just dotted with a few idols, it was full of them. Isaiah even points out how absurd it is. They are literally bowing down to things that their own hands and their own fingers created. It's just mind-boggling. And here's a crucial detail. Isaiah makes it absolutely clear that this sin had infected every single level of society. This wasn't just a problem for the uneducated or an indulgence of the rich. No, this was a national plague of faithlessness, which leads us straight to the verdict. So, the prosecution has laid out all the evidence: the foreign influences, the materialism, the military pride, and the rampant idolatry. The divine case is coming to a close, and the verdict is as severe as it is inescapable. Verse 9 is crystal clear about who was guilty. It says, "The mean man boweth down, and the great man humbleth himself." Now, the mean man here just means the common, ordinary person, your average Joe. And the great man is the elite, the powerful, the wealthy. And the point is stunning. It didn't matter. From the poorest farmer to the richest noble, they were all equally guilty, all bowing down to idols. And because of this universal, unrepentant guilt that went from the top of society all the way to the bottom, Isaiah delivers the final, chilling line of the judgment. Therefore, forgive them not. It's a declaration that judgment is now the only option left. There's no room for a pardon. The case is closed.
You know, this ancient indictment leaves us with a timeless and pretty sobering question. Isaiah's case is a powerful warning about what happens when a society's trust shifts away from its core principles and onto its own wealth and its own power. It forces every one of us to ask, what have we built our world on, and is it strong enough to stand?